but what impressed me is the resilience. The resilience of the teams I worked with inside Nestle, but also others I met. Leadership is not, limited to the MD or the chairman. No, we're all leaders. If you work in a job, even if you have nobody reporting to you, in the end, in a certain job, you have to decide. If it's easy, it's not a decision. Then it's obvious. Because in the end, if your consumers don't trust a product, they don't trust the brand, why should they buy? You as a brand always need to do, yes, you work on the core of your product, but you also need to try to go out and test a few things differently. You will not succeed, no matter if it's in the corporate world, if it's, as an entrepreneur, if it's in academia, it's whatever you want to do. But I think it's also important that you have other interests in life. If your whole life is about your job, then I think you have a much higher risk of, you use the word burning out or getting frustrated about.
Welcome back to Power Moves. It's episode 13 of Power Moves, and today, as usual, we are in the midst of a leader who has created a career across multiple continents and here is now in Sri Lanka, bringing the best of his abilities to a company that has not only created a legacy for itself here in Sri Lanka but globally as well. This particular individual has worked in Europe, in Australia, in China, and is now stationed here in Sri Lanka. And he is none other than Stefan, Chairman and Managing Director of Nestle Lanka Private Limited. Bernie, welcome to Power Moves. It's a very, very big pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's exciting to be in Power Moves, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely, Bernie. So, going straight into it. If I was to define you, I'd define you as a strategist, a change maker, an athlete, because you love your triathlons as well, and being the chairman and managing director of Nestle Limited. Before all of that, let's talk about your origin story. You've had nearly 25 years of experience. You're celebrating 25 years in the company very soon, and very congratulations from our part for that remarkable achievement. Talking about your journey, Bernie, when you start from countries like Europe to then moving to Switzerland, China, to Sri Lanka, what sort of mindset shift do you have to keep when you're moving across continents at such a fast pace?
Look, I think first of all, it was a super and is a super exciting journey.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is the new experiences, the learnings. So wherever you go, you learn. You learn from a different culture, you learn in a different country, you learn from your teams. And I think that's the one thing, wherever you go, if you're curious, if you're interested in experiencing different cultures, different ways of working, that's the number one thing. And that's also in a certain way excites me, that you're not in the same job forever. Yes, I've been 25 years with Nestle, but it doesn't feel like that, because as you said, I moved around a fair bit. And I think that's one of the reasons why I have been there, and I hope to be with the company much longer.
Much longer, absolutely. So, taking into account the career that you have forged for yourself and the legacy that you're building here at Nestle, what's a single decision that you made that shaped everything that you built and achieved over the past 25 years? One single decision that changed everything.
I think it's very hard to really, nail it down to one decision other than joining the organization, of course.
At least some highlights.
But I think really, it is this constantly trying to be open to different things. And when I look at the jobs I did over the 25 years, they were quite different. Not only different in countries, but they were different roles. I started in M&A, which was more a strategic role. But then, I moved from that into a very operational role, managing a sales depot in Germany, in a company we acquired a few months before. So, sometimes, these cuts felt a bit, stressful, or,
they felt novel to you.
Yes, but that's, I think, the one thing that, you constantly try to be open and, look, making plans is great, but we all know one thing that happens with plans. They never turn out the way how you think they will. And that's the one thing, I think, keeping this open mind to looking at challenges, even if they're not what you would have thought originally, it has served me very well.
To be ready for any possibility, any outcome.
Yes.
Okay, great. So talking about power moves in leadership, the name of our podcast is Power Moves, and I'm sure over your career you have taken many power moves. You've led teams across multiple cultures, from Europe to Australia to China to South Asia and now Sri Lanka. What is one non-negotiable trait that works everywhere? Is there a one-size-fits-all trait?
I think there is. I think the number one is respect. And no matter in which culture you work, respect is, the prerequisite, the base of how you build things.
Yes.
Of course, you could talk about trust, but I think unless you respect somebody, you can't trust. So for me, really, if I have to bring it down to one word, I would say it's respect.
And how has your time here in Sri Lanka been in terms of the professionals you have worked with, the work culture here in Sri Lanka, the job market here in Sri Lanka, the amount of talent in Sri Lanka? How have you viewed it since 2023?
Look, I had, a great time. I'm having a great time here. And, I came at an interesting time in the country because I came early 23, as you said. We just came out of not only a recession, of a default.
Major economic
And I mean, there's not many countries, that went through a default when you think back. So coming here, of course, everybody told me, Bernie, you're going to go to a place, default, and the, exchange rates will continue to go up and, interest rates and all that. So I was prepared for the worst in many ways. People said, this is going to be the next Zimbabwe, the next Turkey, the next Venezuela. And, when I came, I was really impressed. First of all, I was impressed how quickly, from a macroeconomic stability point of view, the country normalized. But also, in all honesty and fairness, for the individuals, it turned out to be extremely tough because disposable income was heavily reduced, spending power reduced. I mean, I think everybody was struggling.
Yeah.
When I look around my team and my leadership team, including them, but the broader team, everybody had huge pressures because, look, yes, we try to help people and we try to, give them some salary compensations and, some hardship.
Yeah.
But still, the cost of living went up drastically,
Gets
schooling
skyrocketing,
fees and everything. So that was really interesting. But what impressed me is the resilience. The resilience of the teams I worked with inside Nestle, but also others I met. I think, people here see these challenges coming their way as something, okay, look, it's something, but we're going to get through it, we're going to fix it, we're going to move on.
Right, great. And we have taken a turn for the better, Sri Lanka, in 2025. We are doing much better than what we were 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
Talking about that transition, coming into Sri Lanka at a time where Sri Lanka wasn't doing good, especially when it comes to FMCG goods, like what Nestle is in. And a majority of those goods have probably been household items for the longest time. When you came to Nestle Lanka, what sort of bold moves did you take in 2023 in the midst of that economic crisis to ensure that the business was also continuing, that your workforce is taken care of, and also where you were able to innovate and produce better products for the consumer market?
I think you talked about two important points. One was really taking care of the team. And as times were extremely tough, we needed to make sure that, our people, they have the right support from a company, as much as you can do. I mean, there's limits, yes. Yeah. But, we, as I said, we gave some support on the salary side. The tax levels increased, income tax increased quite drastically. Yeah. So we tried to look after our people as much as we could, because I think that's important. When you don't have the people there to do the job, no matter how resilient they are, it doesn't work. The other one, and that was, maybe it doesn't sound like a bold move to you, but in mid-23, so I've been here maybe 4 months, we did a major price correction. Right. And we reduced price points of our products, which was not very well regarded by my shareholders, my bosses back in, outside, because nobody likes, to hear about a price reduction. I said, guys, we have completely priced ourselves out of the market. And we saw what happened. Market shares came down, we were under pressure. Yeah. And this was a bold move, but it was the right move.
Was that a risk that you took?
It was a risk. It was a risk, yes, because, people always kind of, but if it doesn't work, then you lose your margin and also. So no, it was a risk, but it was definitely the right one. And look, it's not a decision that I took alone. I mean, I talked a lot with the team and with my guys on the ground, and we came to this decision. But ultimately, okay, I'm the head. I take it, and if it works
the buck
out,
stops
it's the team. The buck stops with me. If it doesn't work out, I said I took the decision, and I'm glad we did it. And this one worked out. Not all decisions always do.
Exactly. So you base a lot of your decisions on data,
Yes.
or do you sometimes go on a whim and take a decision?
Look, majority, I think it's risky if you just try to decide things, by emotions or something. Data is important. But I think what we've seen over the last few years, and I mean, the economic crisis was one example, but look, just before that we had a global pandemic that none of us has ever experienced. So I think where we also sometimes have to be a bit careful, data in the end is never wrong. Data is there, it's a fact. Where we have to be careful is how do we interpret the data. And I think that's where sometimes then you need to take a decision that is maybe not so obvious, but I think, the last globally 4 or 5 years have, shown us that not everything can be, decided and predicted and decided based on our experience from the past. Because nobody went through a global pandemic, nobody went through a default in Sri Lanka. So yes, we have data, but in the end, then we needed to make something out of that and decide and do what we believed was the right move.
Understood. Why I asked you that question was, when you're a leader, when you're leading a team, it doesn't have to be at the level of a CEO or a managing director. Even if you're a manager, middle-level executive, there are some decisions that you must make. You might not have the time to assess all possible options and make the best possible decision. You have to go out on a limb, make that decision, and hope things turn out for the best. It's not encouraged, but as a leader, that's one quality that you must have. And I'm pretty sure that you've also had instances where you've had to trust your gut and make a certain decision. Am I right?
Absolutely. And I think this is part of, leadership. And you said the right thing. Leadership is not, limited to the MD or the chairman. No, we are all leaders. If you work in a job, even if you have nobody reporting to you, in the end, in a certain job, you have to decide. And this is very often, if it's easy, it's not a decision. Then it's obvious. But when you have, to say, I can go left, I can go right, well, you have to decide.
You have to make a decision, yeah.
But what I think is important that, as an organization, and that's where senior leaders come into play. Where we come into play is that you create an environment where people feel empowered to take a decision. And they also know that if it doesn't work out, that's also okay.
The organization will have your back.
And that's important, because, hey, if you, the rest is the famous overused saying, but, if you never made a mistake, you have never taken any decision because you never tried. And I think that's important as an organization that we create an environment where people can fail, but you have to fail fast, you have to learn, and clearly you should not, fail twice on the same thing.
Yes.
And that's a role that senior leaders bring, that you, have the back of your people and of your teams and said, okay, look, didn't work out the way we wanted to, let's try differently and let's move on.
Great. Talking about Nestle as a brand, you head Nestle Lanka Limited, you've been heading so many other Nestle brands, aligned brands over the years, and that brand, the Nestle brand, has been around for decades. It's become a household name, but it has gone through its ebbs and flows. You've had to reinvent, you've had to re-strategize in order to stay relevant. How do you make a brand stay relevant over long periods of time, Bernie?
I think it starts with one very important point. It starts with trust. Because in the end, if your consumers don't trust a product, they don't trust a brand, why should they buy it? And as you said, we've been around for a long time. We've been around 160 years globally. And actually next year in 2026, we're going to celebrate 120 years in Sri Lanka.
In Sri Lanka alone.
In Sri Lanka alone, we built our first factory over 40 years ago in Panala. And today, 90% of the products that we sell in Sri Lanka, we make locally. But in the end, as you rightly say, if you have a great product, but you don't try to continuously stay relevant to the consumer, they will stop buying you because there's no reason to buy it because, people have choices. That's the great thing. You don't have to buy a Nestle product. You can buy a competitor product which, when you think it's better, better taste, better price, whatever.
Especially with the Gen Z market, I feel like brand loyalty to them means a different level of trust.
Absolutely.
Because they won't hesitate to change.
Much quicker than previous generations. I also think, today you have way more choice. Because when you think in the old days, the only place where you could get a product is you had to go to a shop. Now you have different types of channels, as we call it. You have online. But then you have now, we have quick commerce coming up. I think not too long ago you had Yannick here from Celeste.
Yes, exactly.
And, amazing company. So, now as a consumer, you have choice. And that's why, of course, as you rightly say, we need to continuously try to connect. And I give you one example. Our biggest brand in the country is Nestomalt. Nestomalt has been here for a long time. Yeah. It's actually a brand that Nestle only manufactures and sells in Sri Lanka.
Oh, I see.
So it's a unique Sri Lankan product, and it's, in the end, 1 in 4 wakes up to a cup of Nestomalt in the morning. But then, some of my team said, and, we've got young people in marketing, said, yeah, but you know what, Bernie? We don't really use Nestomalt ourselves. So what they did, we have, of course, innovated the recipe to optimize the nutritional content, to, improve the delivery on the flavor, on the thickness of the cup.
To improve the health aspect of it.
Yes, which is important. But then also they worked, with some non-typical Nestomalt partners. And we worked with, one company that made a donut with Nestomalt. We make with another one, we do ice cream. And they sell it in their ice cream parlors. We have a Nestomalt shake, because it's like a caramel.
Yeah.
So, and these are things, where you connect, and then of course, you can use social media to connect to the younger consumers. And I think these are things that you as a brand always need to do. Yes, you work on the core of your product, but you also need to try to go out and test a few things differently. Yeah. Sometimes it works and it's great. Sometimes, look, it's maybe feeling more a bit like, a gimmick, but hey, it's one of the things to keep people engaged.
It's one of the processes in the pipeline of innovation and reinvention.
Absolutely.
Great. Yes. So we spoke about Nestle as a brand. Let's talk about Bernie as a brand. You've been in M&A, you've been in strategy, you've been in business development, marketing, sales, e-commerce, so on. So you've basically been through the entire value chain. How have you reinvented, redeveloped, acquired skills which are required for each of these business units to stay relevant?
So I think, first, and that's really important in today's world, it's learning agility. And I think many of us, when we went to school, it was a very one-way confrontation. Somebody told you had to learn it, and that's what in the test you had to repeat. I think the world luckily has moved on. And what was knowledge in the past is learning today. So learning over knowledge. I think this is extremely important. And whenever I moved on, it's not that I, immediately left behind and completely forgot what I did before. But I think you need to go in with this open mind and say, look, this is something that, maybe you're not so familiar with. So learn, be open. Listen, talk to people, connect. Of course, then, you would connect with what you have done and your experience.
Yes.
But I think it's really important that you go in and have this open mind and this learning agility and this curiosity that you kind of want to get into something that, maybe you haven't done before.
Great. You've had global experience. You're here in Sri Lanka, but for more than 25 years, you worked in multiple parts of the world. With your experience working in fast-moving markets in the world, what sort of learnings can you share with young Sri Lankans who are aspiring to follow a career in corporate, to start their own business, to take their business to the world? What is your advice?
Look, I think for everybody, if you aspire to be an entrepreneur, if you want to go into a corporate career, I think, the most important thing is, get going. And starting somewhere. And it's the classical thing, better done than perfect. I think this is really important that, if you go in and you say, I need to think my plan over and I wait, no, you will never be there. So I think, you start, you go, and you give it your best try. And then you will see if, you're on track to achieve your goals, whatever that is. And everybody luckily has different goals. Yeah. Then you see how you do. And I think that's the other important one, that, from time to time, and I don't mean daily or weekly, but, from time to time, you should reflect on, okay, I wanted to have a career at Nestle, like Bernie, or I want to be an entrepreneur. And then you reflect and say, am I on track where I thought I would like to be? And if you're not on track, well, then, it's a good opportunity and maybe a good idea to recalibrate a little
realign.
bit. And realign between what you wanted to do and where you are. And I think that's the other important ones. You get going, but then, you need to keep learning. And when you look, for me, some of the most successful entrepreneurs and companies, they start with one idea, but over time they move into something completely different. And take some of maybe some of your, our viewers here are more interested in the tech industry. For me, a great example is Uber. Because when you look at Uber, when he started in California, it was basically ride sharing. It was actually, I think he came up with the idea there's all these black limos in the US that park most of the day, and you can use them differently. And when you look at Uber today, it's no longer a ride-hailing app. Yes, we use it. You use it, I use it, to go somewhere. Exactly. But you have Uber Eats and so much more. And I think this will continue to evolve. So that's for me. You have the openness, have the open mindset that things might not come the way, but you have to take the first step.
How important is having a value system and a purpose for a company and also for an individual?
I think it's the most important thing.
The core element.
If you don't have values, I think it's very hard for an individual or for a company to stay true to what you want to do. Look, as you said, yes, 25 years in a company sounds awfully long, and many, were not even born 25 years ago, at least when I joined Nestle. Why did I stay so long? Look, I think because the values of the organization and my personal values, they match. They sync. I'm not saying everything is always 100% perfect, but hey, life's not perfect. But the values as an organization and the values of Bernie, there is a strong fit. And that's why I believe unless you have a strong value system, you will not succeed, no matter if it's in the corporate world, if it's, as an entrepreneur, if it's in academia, it's whatever you want to do. There are these values that are there. And look, I think, having kids, I think that's also important. In the end, the one thing you can give your kids is a set of values.
Amazing. Talking about constantly being on the ball, when you're leading a company, if you take your day to day, you have a recording in the morning, in the afternoon, and then you run off for meetings. I'm pretty sure you have a million other things to juggle along the way. How do you balance high performance living like that, making important, impactful decisions, but also ensuring you maintain that intensity without burning out and managing your work-life balance, the buzzword everyone talks about? How does that apply to you?
Look, I always struggle with the word work-life balance a little bit because I think in today's world, maybe different to the past, there is no work life and there is no private life in a certain way. It transcends. Maybe when there was a time before we had devices, you could leave work in the office. But look, you have your emails, and even if you don't want to look, come on, of course you look at your iPhone or your Samsung and you look and you do.
That come after others as well.
So I think that's the important part, is that you, in the end, I believe you enjoy what you do. So that's for me super important. I never saw, work as kind of like something that, is a burden and I have to do, and, I can't wait to get out of the office and then it's done. No, I enjoy most of the time what I do. But I think it's also important that you have other interests in life. If your whole life is about your job, then I think you have a much higher risk of, you use the word burning out, or getting frustrated about that. So I think, you need interests in life beyond that. That can be your family, that can be your, being sports, reading, whatever. But something that, also allows you to really switch off.
Yes.
And, then, give your, brain a bit of a break from the work thinking and do something else.
A bit of a recharge.
Yes.
Amazing. Bernie, when you look back at your career of 25 years across multiple continents, what would you want people to remember about you when you leave the company eventually, or when you take a break? What is that legacy you want to leave behind?
Look, I would hope that people say he was a leader that treated everybody with respect. He was somebody who helped us to unite behind one goal and work as one team, and somebody who is fair.
Who's fair.
Who's fair.
Right. And that's Those are the three things you want people
That
to
would be, I think, the three things. And look, the fairness part for me is important because when you have, sometimes in my role you have to take tough decisions. That's part of the job.
People might feel hard done by them.
Hard done. But I think that's important that, especially when you take the tough decisions, you have to do it in a fair way. And maybe one other point, but which is a bit linked, to the trust part, is transparency. I think that's extremely important, that people also, they know where they are. And, when you take a decision, even if it's a tough one, I think it's extremely critical that we explain why
that
we do
decision
it.
was made. Right. Amazing. 25 years with Nestle. We wish you all the power, encouragement and inspiration for 25 years more with Nestle. Bernie Stefan, Chairman and Managing Director of Nestle Lanka Limited, was my guest today. We spoke about how his roles have evolved over the past 25 years, how he has managed to work with workforces from multiple continents and now here in Sri Lanka, the importance of being agile, the importance of having values and a purpose in life, and also to love what you do in order to ensure that nothing gets too intense, you don't get too overwhelmed, and you don't eventually burn out. Bernie, thank you very much for joining me on Power Moves. We hope to see you soon, and we wish you all the best in everything that's to come.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. It was great to be with you.
Amazing to hear that. We will be back on a brand new episode of Power Moves. Until then, take care and stay safe.